So today's session basically is a demo session where they have been teaching us that how should we be talking about sustainable methods of menstrual hygiene products and sustainable ways of menstruation. And the community that I chose here to address today was urban young women or young working women who are living in an urban setup, who have very good sanitization practices, who have very good amenities when it comes to sanitization, toilets, living conditions. And yet why and how do we choose to use sanitary napkins that we have been using, we have been taught to use right from the day one of our menstruating journey? What is stopping us from making this change? So this video is going to be divided into a few 4 or 5 parts. The first part is going to be what exactly is a sanitary napkin? Do we even know the sanitary napkin well that we are using? How is it affecting our own body? And then how is it affecting our environment? And what are the other options that we have available? And if the other options that we have available, how can we be more comfortable with those options? So first and foremost, I'll give you some stats for 2 minutes, which might be a little boring. So please bear with me just to understand the severity of the situation that we are facing. So one thing is that there are, at any given point in time, there are 336 million women, girls inclusive, menstruating in India. 336 million, out of which 121 million women use sanitary napkins, women or girls. Now, on an average, a period lasts from 2 to 4 days. And on an average, any girl or women might use anywhere in that range of 4 to 5 days, might use anywhere from 8 pads sanitary napkins to 12 sanitary napkins. On an average, it means that India alone, with 121 million women menstruating, India alone produces 12.3 billion sanitary napkins waste in one complete year. That's a lot when you imagine. I started menstruating when I was 14 years old. I have been menstruating for 15 years, and from 15 years, every single month, I have been contributing. Domestic hazardous waste is what your sanitary napkin comes under. There is dry waste, there is wet waste, and there is domestic hazardous waste. So I have been contributing around 8 to 10 sanitary napkins over a span of 15 years, and I'm just one person. Also, another thing about these sanitary napkins is that initially when the concept started, it started during the wartime when they needed something for the bleeding soldiers to absorb blood, and that's how they came up with self-sticking pads. And that time there were gauze and cotton rolls which were used one over another by the nurses who were working overtime if they are menstruating. Slowly, steadily, that became an idea, but the material they were using was compostable. Like once they have used the material, if they put it in the landfill over a period of 90 days to 120 days, it would become a compost and it would get degraded completely. But as the demand increased, cotton is expensive. The whole processing of cotton is expensive. Making gauze is expensive. So companies started looking for more cheaper version, and that is where wood pulp came in. Initially, wood pulp was used, and then the plastic revolution started. Of course, there were polyethylenes, polymers, and those plastic sheets and all those cellulose bubbles and cellulose particles were used in making the sanitary napkin. A basic anatomy of sanitary napkin is such that there are 4 layers. The topmost layer that we see, there are intricate designs and channels, and there is also like a quilt stitch on the napkin that we see. That is the layer that's supposed to be dry, but also it is supposed to allow the flow of blood inside. Immediately below that layer, there are a few channels that distribute. They distribute all your blood so that your blood is not in one particular position in your sanitary napkin. It is distributed over laterally. So there are small channels in which through it goes. The third layer is the most important layer, which is the absorbent layer. A sanitary napkin is functional only if it is absorbing your menstrual blood. So when it is absorbing your menstrual blood, what they are using is super absorbent polymers. Polymers are again very, very small plastic particles, processed plastic particles. So the absorbent layer is where your menstrual fluid is absorbed and it is under negative pressure converted into gel-like substance where it sits. And the last layer is a polythene layer where it has a sticking which sticks on the crotch area of your panties. And that is the layer which prevents the leaking. Now, every single layer is made up of non-biodegradable materials, starting from the absorbent, starting from the most topmost layer, which is very close and snugly fitting your vaginal and vulval area. So this is the anatomy of the sanitary napkin that we are using. Now, again, in the sanitary napkins, I don't know if all you women are aware of this, but around 4 or 5 years ago, there was a big revolution where everybody asked sanitary napkin companies to, under consumer law, to label and to write what is in those sanitary napkin pads. Nobody until that time realized that these people who are making sanitary napkin, the companies, are not jotting down the materials that they are using because they are biohazardous. So what happens is when you are using these polyethylenes, polymers, super absorbent material, all this is bleached to be incorporated in a sanitary napkin, and the bleach that is used is chlorine,
There is
and the
some
active molecule
disturbance.
of chlorine. I'll just mute. Yeah, just
I think there is some disturbance.
yeah. Now can you hear me clearly?
Yeah,
It's better now? Yeah. So what I was saying is that it is the dioxin. So the two most notorious things out of this whole masala that goes in making sanitary napkin, the two most known notorious elements are super absorbent materials, which are polymers, which are basically plastic beads. And another thing is dioxin. There was a study done 5-6 years ago which labeled that dioxin is the reason which is causing pelvic inflammatory diseases. It is highly carcinogenic. Also, in very small quantities, it can lead to ovarian cancers, it can lead to breast cancers, it can cause pelvic inflammatory diseases, vaginal infection, and even skin cancers for that matter. And we are wearing these sanitary napkins very snugly close to our vaginal and vulval area for 72 to 56 hours. That is the amount of exposure every month we are giving ourselves. Also, dioxin has been postulated to have a role in menstrual abnormalities, premature ovarian failure, premature menopause, as the generations and generations who are using these dioxin products are increasing. That's about sanitary napkins effect that it has on you. These are the internal effects. The external effects, I'm sure all of us must have experienced this: itching, rashes, pubic hair folliculitis. We use, whether you use shaving method, whether you use Brazilian waxing, whether you use hair removal creams, due to constant friction, there is folliculitis that develops, which is the infection and a pustule formation of your hair follicles, which is very painful. Another thing is vaginal infection. There are so many women who are now acquiring community acquired infections because these sanitary napkins or tampons also work on the same principle with the same materials. Only difference is tampons are more hazardous because they are inside the vaginal cavity. So here the moisture plays a role, heat plays a role. There is gelfied blood which is lying outside in the pad. Your skin is secreting sweat, that plays a role. All these external factors make it a very good environment for bacteria to grow. Now these bacteria go inside the vagina and they disturb the normal good bacteria. They overpower it and they cause infection. Second thing, whenever we are wearing sanitary napkins and we are out in public places, and if we are using a bathroom, we are pulling down our panties, sitting on the commode, the sanitary napkin is coming in direct contact with a cubicle of a washroom that 100 other women have used before us. And again, we are getting up and wearing the same one. So there is where many of them have this community acquired urinary tract infection, which is then not treated with your routine medications. You need intravenous antibiotics or more heavier antibiotics to treat that.
Okay.
So this is another part. The infections. This is another part where we are talking about the infections. We are talking about the urinary tract infections, the moisture and the heat and the bacterial buildup. Another important thing is we have to consider is the environment. We being urban women, we being living in families where menstruation is not a taboo, we are taught right from the beginning what is menstruation and how it happens and why it is important. We are also taught how to dispose of a pad. And what are we taught? I'll tell you what I was taught. I was taught that I am supposed to take the pad, wrap it in its own covering, then wrap it in a paper, tie it properly in maybe a bag or a paper bag, discard it, and wash my hands. That is where my disposing procedure
Absolutely.
ends. What happens after that? We are
Correct.
never told what happens after that, or we are never curious enough to know what happens after that. Now your waste is going into a bigger common garbage area where there are these manual scavengers who are supposed to open these packages of garbage that you have created and hand it over to the garbage truck. And these manual scavengers are the people who, at least in India, are not provided with any basic gloves or any other basic items to work with, and with bare hands they are opening all the garbage packets. They are opening this very well packed sanitary napkin which has our menstrual blood and is now being in the garbage with that blood in the gel form, where the bacteria must have multiplied by a million fold. We don't even know.
Correct.
At the end of the
Correct.
day, menstrual blood is bodily fluid. It has viruses like HIV, it has viruses like hepatitis, and we are releasing them, and we are exposing these manual scavenger workers to these factors. So even though we are disposing of it in a very good way in our houses, it is not what is happening the moment it leaves our house. In 2016, the Waste Disposal Management Committee, Solid Waste Disposal Committee, had released a few rules about waste management, which I don't know if we are even aware of. There is dry waste, there is wet waste, there is hazardous domestic waste, and a sanitary napkin is a hazardous domestic waste. It is supposed to be discarded as a part of dry waste, and when the person comes to collect garbage, you are supposed to give a separate bag where you're supposed to say that these are domestic hazardous waste. These domestic hazardous waste is directly supposed to go into industrial incinerators. They are not to be opened, they are not to be meddled with, nothing. They are separately sent to industrial incinerators and they're supposed to be incinerated. Now, the condition of these incinerators also in India, there are a lot of schools that do tell girls that, don't throw away. I don't know if you have seen a school, rural school set up in India. So here there is a school, there is a bathroom, there is a small tunnel which goes to a separate cement block where the girls are supposed to discard the sanitary napkins that they're using without disposing. And is cement block ke niche, there is a burning fire which is supposed to incinerate the sanitary pads. But these are not made according to the temperature is important, where the fumes that are coming out after you're incinerating these plastic coated, polymer coated, dioxin laden, menstrual blood laden sanitary napkins, it's all getting combusted and it's coming out in the air. All these, there are fragrances which are used, there are genetically modified organisms which are used in these sanitary napkins. All these are getting released in the air, and the air is within the same area of the school where these kids are studying. So these are the basic problems that we discussed, what sanitary napkins have for us and what sanitary napkins has for the environment. And yet still, even today in 2020, we are producing 12.3 billion sanitary napkin pads every year. I have even schools, they have these sex ed classes where girls are taught how to use sanitary napkins and dispose them, but they are not taught how to use cloth pads. They are not taught what disposal is the right disposal. So right from a very starting level of sex ed class, we have been told this. So now what is happening is, ever since the green climate or ever since the climate change, the landfills are full now. And when and how people have started realizing how things are going bad is now, you will be surprised to know menstrual cup is in existence since 1927. And it is now that it is gaining its importance. It is not far back now. I think our aunts and our mothers are now around 60, 70 years old. If you ask them during their childhood, they were using cloth pads. They were using cloth pads. They were washing them. They were drying them. They were using them again. There were a few problems where leakage was a problem, staining was a problem. But at least they were not generating so much of waste. So now all these things are coming back. All these things are gaining a lot of attention. What is basically sustainable menstruation? Sustainable menstruation has two aspects. One is how you handle the menstrual blood. Second is whatever device you are using, how you dispose it or what effect does it has on the environment. Now in sustainable menstruation, there are biodegradable pads, there are menstrual cups, there are cloth pads, and there are some cotton-based liners that you can use if the flow is not too much. There is a term known as biodegradable, and there is a term known as compostable. Biodegradable means that if it's a bigger piece of plastic, it is going to biodegrade over 500 years and become a smaller piece of plastic, but it is still plastic. Compostable is something that is broken down completely into its elements and can be used in separate ways or reused in other ways. So now, why was this important is because sustainable menstruation, the bigger part is how you dispose of the materials that you are using. So let us start with cloth pads. Nowadays, there are a lot of companies that are making cloth pads. They are making cloth pads from basic cotton, which are lined one after another. Their pads have these small buttons behind that will go and attach itself to the panties, so there is no slipping. They have XL, they have large, they have thicker, they have thinner pads. Now these cloth pads, they are very soothing to the skin. Cotton absorbs much more fluid than your sanitary napkin. You can change it in 6 to 8 hours. You can immediately wash it and you can keep it. If you're out somewhere, you can just keep it in your bag, maybe carry a separate bag to wrap it up and then come home and then wash it again and use the spare one that you have. Another thing about cotton pads is because there are no added perfumes, there are no added chemicals, it does not alter the very delicate pH of your vagina. When you're menstruating, the vaginal defense is already down because of the blood. Using a sanitary napkin alters that pH more, making it more susceptible for infections. Cloth pads do not do that, but cloth pads are also absorbent menstrual hygiene products where they absorb your menstrual blood. So once it's absorbed your menstrual blood, it is still lying outside your body. It is still lying close to the vaginal vulval area. And that's the reason why within 6 to 8 hours, you should remove it, you should wash it, and you should use the other one. Another good thing about cloth pads is each cloth pad can be used for 3 to 5 years, depending on how's the wear and tear of the cloth. Second thing is that if you have a set of 6 or 5 cloth pads, you're good to go for every month for 3 years. So do the math. 12 sanitary napkins every period for 3 years compared to just 5 cloth pads that you're using for every period for 3 years. How do you dispose of these cloth pads? Cotton takes 90 days to compost once put in a compost bin. If you're somebody who does compost at home, you can take this cotton pad and put it in composting. If you're not somebody who composts at home, you can find out about composting regions in and around your area. You can label this as compostable cloth pads or used menstrual cloth pads, and you can donate it to that compostable region or that compostable company which does this work in your locality. You are not leaving any footprint on this earth, and then you replace those cotton pads and so on and so forth. So in your lifetime of 15 to 55 years where you are menstruating, on an average, one single woman will use maybe 100 cloth pads, which are properly compostable compared to your 12 pads every year. So on an average, I would like to tell you, give the stats out here. On an average, a regular menstruating woman uses somewhere close to 11,000 to 17,000 sanitary napkins. That compared to 100 cloth pads. So the difference is too much. Another common thing, there are biodegradable pads. Now, biodegradable pads are basically, they are also absorbing materials, but they are made with more organically grown cotton, more biodegradable as well as compostable cotton. They do not have harsh substances like chlorine or dioxin, which has been used for their bleaching. They are mostly bleached using hydrogen peroxide, which is quite body friendly. Even if the residue left behind is very minimal, it does not get absorbed in your system. Another thing that I forgot to mention before when we were discussing about the bad effects of sanitary napkins on your body, when you are wearing a sanitary napkin, it is near your vulval and vaginal area. To give you a very common example, your lips and the inner part of your mouth. Your lips is basically skin, and immediately in the inner part is a moist mucous membrane. Same is the thing with your vagina and vulva. It is a very dynamic area where the skin suddenly transitions into mucus. And you are wearing a sanitary napkin. Now, wherever there is a transition from skin to mucus, it is very rich in blood supply, very rich in your blood supply network. And even when you are wearing these sanitary napkins, so these harmful chemicals can get easily absorbed in your systemic circulation. So even small exposures repeatedly can cause accumulation at the end of 25 to 30 years and can cause problems that we spoke about. So with biodegradable pads with hydrogen peroxide used as bleaching agent, this problem doesn't happen. They come with proper packages and how to pack them and how to dispose them off, and the entire thing is compostable. Again, if you have home compost, if you have a garden, if you have a compost bin or something, you can discard it there, or you can associate with other agencies in your area that compost. Another thing is the third and the most in vogue thing is the menstrual cup. We are mind blown that, wow, menstrual cup, it is amazing. It's just one cup that lasts for 5 years. I just said it is in existence since 1920. So pehle, long before, these menstrual cups were made with latex and rubber, but now they are made with good medical grade silicone. Medical grade silicone is basically what all the implants, breast implants are medical grade silicone. All your lip fillers are medical grade silicone. If you can put these, if women can have the courage to put these things in the integral part of their bodies, then menstrual cup is a cup which is just lying outside in the vaginal cavity. So menstrual cup is another option of sustainable menstruation hygiene product, which is very commonly available. And once you get used to it, it is very, very, once you get used to it, it is very, very comforting for your body, for your mind, and also it changes your whole perception and on your whole experience of menstruation. I have one menstrual cup here to show you. So this is how it comes. This is a medium-sized menstrual cups. Basically, they come in size medium and large. This is how they come. And here there are two small holes. If you can see, these are given for suction. Now, this is medical grade silicone. It is pliable. You can fold it in whatever way you want. And once you open it, it's going to come back to its original form. Menstrual cup is not an absorbent. This is menstrual fluid collection device. This is not going to change the pattern in which your menstrual fluid is going to come out of your body. This is just going to collect it and keep it in one place. It is not going to convert it into gel. It is not going to bring it outside your body where it is exposed to the skin, the sweat, the moisture, the heat, which enhances the bacterial colonies inside the blood. It is still snugly fitting inside the vagina. The menstrual blood is getting collected in the cup. And when you remove it, you discard it as it is. Menstrual blood is not infective. It is the presence of bacteria and the skin organisms in the presence of moisture and heat that make the menstrual blood, which is absorbed and made in gel form in the sanitary napkin, toxic. This is just plain simple sterile menstrual fluid. If we take menstrual fluid from menstruating women and we send it for culture sensitivity, we will only get friendly vaginal bacteria and organisms present, no pathogens. So this again does not alter with the pH. It reduces your chances of urinary tract infection and vaginal infection. Again, how do you handle the menstrual cup? So I will come to the insertion part and the removal part. Like we discussed, that only menstruating sustainably is not important, even disposing is important. What do you do with the menstrual fluid? It's a very good fertilizer. If you have pots, if you have a garden, if you have plants, if you compost, you can just use this blood once you've removed the cup, you can just put it in your compost bin, or you can put it in your pots, or you can put it in your plants. That is one thing. Second thing is you can just put it in the commode and you can wash the blood away. The blood is not going to block your sink. The blood, like I said, is sterile. It's not going to cause any harm. It's just going to flow away. Another thing that a lot of people do is that once they have collected the menstrual blood, what they do is if they have any association with any compostable agencies nearby, they tell them that we have menstrual blood. So you can maybe come and collect it and maybe use it as a fertilizer for your own use. How do you wash the cup? So the same thing can be done even with the water that you have used to wash the cup. It takes around 1.5 to 2 liters of water for washing the cup for all 5 days. If you're using the cup for 5 days, the maximum amount of water that you're spending in washing and reusing is around 1.5 to 2, maximum up to 3 liters, but not more than that. And if you are in a place where there is not a good sanitation system or there is not a system where you can just throw away the water, you can just use that discarded water after washing your menstrual cup. You can just pour it in the soil. Because like I said, menstrual fluid is not infected. How do you use this cup? So basically, there are many folds that you can use. One is where you pinch it and you turn it. This is known as the C fold. This is most commonly used by women who have already given birth to a child, are aware of their anatomy, or have more roomy vagina. Another way of inserting the cup is where they are young girls, teenage girls, where the vaginal cavity is small, the vaginal muscles are more tense. You can use a punch down method where you punch it down and you fold it. And this is how it looks. This is the smallest diameter that you can insert inside. So this is how, if this is the entry of the vagina, sorry. So you can just insert it inside and you can just leave it. So this was the punch down technique. I'll show you again. Punch it down and fold it upon itself. The entry diameter reduces. Another most common used is the 7-fold. So 7-fold is where you pinch it and you fold it and you insert it inside. So this is the way that you're supposed to insert the cup. Now, once the cup goes inside, you are supposed to leave it, and whatever fold you have created will just open up. And you will hear this pop. I don't know if you can hear it now. Not everyone will hear it, but this is the pop sound that comes. If you hear the pop sound, it means that the suction has been created. You are supposed to press the bottom part of the cup to release the fold. Once the cup is inside, you can just press the bottom part with your finger to make sure that the cup is open. The most common misinterpretation is that you're supposed to insert the cup in the vagina and this part of the cup is supposed to be outside the vagina so that you can pull it. It's not like that. This whole part from this tip till the rim is supposed to be inside your vaginal cavity. Now, there is a lot of fear that the cup will get lodged inside the vaginal cavity. I will not be able to remove it. The cup will get stuck and then I will not be able to remove it. Such problems, of course, they are more fear and anxiety rather than actual problems. So once you have the cup in place, how do you remove it? You have to release the suction which is there. So very simple thing, you pinch. Once you've pinched, you turn and you pull it out. So how do you remove the cup? You pinch, you turn, and you remove it. This is how it is. And then you, just one second. And that's how you use it. Now, what is it? So I want to know, so here we have Sachi, we have Gabby, we have Anulita, we have Jasmeet, Blue Sky, Suvarna, Anshu ma'am, Lakshmi and Priyanka. I want you girls to message in the chat that what is it that is stopping you from sustainable methods of menstrual hygiene? If you have not yet made the change, what is it that is stopping you? Why have you not made the change? Because I am sure all of us here in this meeting are very well aware of all the things that I have spoken now. So by the time you give me those reasons, let us continue. So this is how you remove the cup. Now, there are a few things that you don't know or you are not always told when you start using the cup. First is it takes time to get used to it. It is something that you're
Hmm.
inserting inside your body. You might have to do a little bit of experimentation. Is medium the right size for you? Is large the right size for you? Normal thing is if you're less than 30 and you have not had a child, medium is the way to go. If you're less than 20 or a teenage, small is the way to go. If you're more than 30, you have had a child, large is the way to go. But it's not necessary that it will be the same. You might have to invest in one or two cups before you know whether medium or large is the right size for you. Second thing, this cup, where does it sit in the vagina? Your vagina is 4 to 10 centimeters long. So basically, the mouth of the uterus is cervix. If this is the cervix, this is where your cup sits. If this is the mouth of the uterus, this is where your cup sits. The length of your finger is 6 centimeters, around 5 to 6 centimeters. So if your cup is even inside up to 6 centimeters, you can always reach your finger, push enough to release the pressure, pull it down, and then pull the stem. So why will this get stuck inside is maybe your lack of expertise or you're very new to it, where you're not able to pull the cup out and you're feeling that it is stuck inside, but it is not so. You might have to relax yourself, you might have to relax your hips, you might have to take a more relaxed position. You can be standing, you can be sitting on the toilet. Another very good position is keeping one foot on the commode and one foot below on the floor. Or you can even squat and you can remove the cup. So sticking inside of the cup, it will take some time for you to get used to it, that how inside does your cup go? How inside do you have to insert your finger? Another good way of bringing out the cup is just put some pressure on your tummy, squat, sit and squat, put some pressure on your tummy so that that pressure will push your cup down a little. And once you can reach the stem of the cup, you just have to follow the stem. If you're going to pull the stem, the cup is not going to come out. You will just keep on pulling the stem and it will not come out because there is suction here. Unless and until you feel the stem, you go up. Once you feel the stem, you go up. You have to pinch, you have to pull, you have to twist, and only then it will come out. So you have to remember this, because a lot of people, what mistake they do is once they reach the stem, they're pulling out, and it's not coming out. That's not the right way. So sticking of the cup is basically you have to give time for yourself to get used to the cup, and it gets stuck inside. It will not come out. It will pain. It will not pain. All these things, they are in a span of 2 to 3 months. If you give yourself, you will get used to it. You will know what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what size is good for you, and then you'll be more comfortable. Whenever you start using a menstrual cup, choose a relaxing day to start using it. Maybe use it on day 3, day 4 when your flow is light to see, or maybe use it once you're back from work, you're at home, you're in your own comfort zone, use it then. If you're using it in a more comfortable situation, you're more confident about the process. You might get it right the first time. The second time, you might have a few hurdles. The third time might not be very good. Fourth time, you might get it right again. So till the time you are very, very confident about the cup, always keep a backup menstrual hygiene product. Don't rely completely on something new. You can invest in biodegradable pads. You can invest in cloth pads. Keep something handy. Another thing about the leakage. How many here have not experienced leakage with sanitary napkins? How many times have we gotten up in the morning and we have really, been upset that, oh my God, I should have just used a darker bed sheet last night. Why did I let the light shade on? So leakage is very common, even with sanitary napkins. Leakage is very common, even when you're doing your day-to-day work. Even when you are at work, there are so many times where you have your friends, you turn to them and you tell them, I'm getting up, just try and check if all's okay behind. So if this is the fear of leakage with a sanitary napkin, with a cup which is fixed very closely to the cervix, which is the origin of your menstrual blood, the chances of leakage are very, very less if it is rightly situated. Again, how far up above the vagina should your cup be? How far down below the vagina should your cup be? Will come with few months of experience. So you have to give yourself that much time. For example, you are at your workplace, you were at home in the morning, while leaving, you inserted your cup, you're very happy about it, but it's already 6 p.m. and you need to empty the cup. You pull down the cup, you emptied it, you washed it, and now you're about to insert it back again, but you're not able to. So you should have something as a backup if such kind of situation arises, not discard the use of the cup completely. That, oh, this doesn't work for me. I can't do this. So building your confidence, it takes time. Give yourself time. Another thing about the leakage, like I said, you will have to figure out how far up it needs to go, how far down it needs to be. So try on very routine and regular days. There was one article which was released in 2016 where there was a concern raised that use of menstrual cup is going to increase the chances of vaginal prolapse in the future. Now, menstrual cup, vaginal prolapse basically happens when all the supports of the vagina go relaxed. Sometimes it's because of old age, sometimes it's because of natural birthing processes. A menstrual cup creates a suction which is not good enough. Even after 20 years of that amount of suction for 5 days in a month, it is not good enough to bring an organ down. So they had raised this concern, but at least till now, no such complaint has come forward. A tampon can soak up to 10 to 12 ml of blood in one time. A sanitary napkin can soak up to 15 ml of blood at one time. Your menstrual cup can hold up to 30 to 35 ml of blood at one given point in time in its original form, in its sterile form. So even if you are busy and you're not able to change your cup in 6 to 8 hours as you should be, you have nothing to worry. So 30 to 35 ml, which means you might have to change twice. Once you insert it at night when you're sleeping, you can directly get up next day morning and this will be there. About how to sanitize the cup. So before every period, if you know that I'm about to get my period in a while, if you know that you are about to get your period in a while, you're supposed to remove it. You're supposed to boil water, put enough water in the container so that the cup doesn't touch the floor of the container, the bottom of the container. Otherwise, because it is medical grade silicone, it will start melting. Okay. So take enough water, boil it for 10 minutes, boil it up to 100 degrees, switch off and put the cup inside. There is no need to add any disinfectant. There is no need to add any soap. There is no need to add nothing. You just have to put it back inside and leave it there for 3 to 5 minutes. Once you start using the cup, you have emptied the cup. After emptying the cup, wash it with plain water. Wash it with plain water. Wipe it dry with a tissue paper or maybe a regular cloth that you keep to wipe your cups. Insert it back inside and you can use it immediately. Because like I said that the menstrual blood inside is sterile. It is not going to cause any infection. So you can insert it back immediately. In these 2 to 3 days, once you have emptied and reused your cup, once your period is over, again, you are supposed to do the boiling process at 100 degrees boiling water, switch off the gas, immerse this for 3 to 5 minutes, keep it like that. Once it's done, leave it out to dry, and then you can use it next time. So this is how you sanitize the cup. Now, what if you have gone to some place where there is no spout or no water? Be always prepared. If you are menstruating and you're using a menstrual cup, always carry a small bottle of water with you and a napkin with you. If you get stuck in a situation where water is not available, you can just use that bottled water to wash your cup and reuse it. So you are not dependent on the loo or the water availability somewhere where you are traveling. Again, storing the cup is very easy. It usually comes in a cloth bag. So you can just store it in a cloth bag, or you can use a napkin or an old cotton cloth at your home where you can fold it and you can keep it. And once you know your period is about to come, take it out 1 or 2 days before and use it. Sometimes it might happen that you have been using cup for years together and everything is fine, but due to some reason on that particular day in the period, the cup is not fitting back in. It doesn't mean that the cup will not work the next period cycle. There must be some problem which is temporary. And once this period is over, this one period, maybe you can use sanitary napkins, biodegradable ones or cloth pads, and later you can again go back to the cup. So that was about the cup. I have a few replies here. So let's read them. Anulita said that it is mostly a mental block. Yes, it is a mental block. for three reasons. One is you are so used to seeing that gel kind of blood on your sanitary napkin, which you are okay with because you know you don't have to touch it. It's not going to spill on your hand. You're just going to peel it and you're going to throw it away. So you're fine with it. But when it comes to the cup, one fear is when you're going to remove the cup, it's going to spill, which is fine. It is your own bodily menstrual fluid.
Absolutely.
So you have to open your mind to that. If you can't handle your own menstrual fluid, how are you expecting others to handle it? Then that's what we are doing when we are using sanitary napkins. We are just leaving the responsibility on others to handle our menstrual blood. So that mental block needs to go first thing. Even if it spills, it's okay. It's not infective. It is coming from a sterile part of your body. It was inside the vagina for a long time, maybe for 8 to 10 hours, but it has not come in contact with any outside pathogen. It is sterile. Even if it gets messy, it spills or it falls on your hand, you can rub it off with soap. Second thing is people feel very icky. They feel very icky to touch their genitals when they're menstruating. They feel very icky with the thought that, oh, I have to insert the cup when I am bleeding and I'll have to touch, that moist bleeding vagina of mine. It is your own body part. You have to accustom, you have to teach yourself how to touch the menstruating vagina, how to insert a cup when you are menstruating, how to handle that flow. You have to let that icky feeling out of your mind. It is a part of your body. You have to accept it even when it's bleeding, even when it's not bleeding. So a mental block, basically, unless and until you don't try it, you will not know whether it is actually life-changing or period-changing experience for you or not. So that is one thing. Does it pain or do you feel, Blue Sky had written, does it pain or do you feel pressure after insertion of the cup? Like, is it uncomfortable? There is something that you're inserting inside your body. How comfortable are sanitary napkins? Once you wear the sanitary napkin, do you feel at any point in time that you are just not wearing a napkin at all? You always feel that the napkin is there. It's the same with menstrual cup. You are going to feel that something is there. When we wear earrings, we do feel that something is there, but after a while we get used to it. It's the same with the cup. When you are wearing it, you will feel for a while that there is something there. Once the suction happens and once the muscles around the suction get used to the suction, the feeling will go away. But you will still feel that there is something there. There will be no pain and there will be no discomfort. But again, you have to give yourself 2 to 3 months to know how far up or far below the vaginal canal your cup needs to be. Once you have figured that out, there is no discomfort or no uncomfortable feeling. I have a cup and tried using it once but couldn't insert it. I need to try again. Yes, definitely you should, or maybe take a look at the size. Maybe it's not the proper size. Again, like I said, if you're a first time user, what you can do is you can try the push down method because it reduces the inserting diameter. So the push down method is very easy. If you're somebody who started using the cup, you pinch it down like this, you insert it like this, you have a better hold at the cup and you just insert it through this diameter. Another very good one is the 7-fold, where you fold it and you fold it like a 7-fold. Here also the diameter is less. If you're somebody who is used to it or can actually be very comfortable, then the C-fold also works better. So this is also good. But then here you can see the diameter of insertion is more. So you can try the pinch down and the 7-fold and see if it works. I am not getting my chumps in 6 months. Don't know the reason why. My age is 30 and I have a 6-year-old daughter. Okay, this is a gynecological question. Just me for.
Yes.
We will come back to it later. I have been feeling like trying it. But I've heard bad experiences with friends that did not know how to use it. After today, I do feel like trying it. For how long can it stay inside? Right. So your menstrual cup can stay inside for around 8 hours, maximum up to 12 hours. In 8 to 12 hours, the cup will be full. It is advisable to change in 8 hours because then the spillage is also less. Because if you are going to change it after 12 hours and if it's one of your heavy bleeding days, there is a possibility it might be full up to the brim. So when you are, actually pinching it and pulling it down, you might spill a little. So 8 hours is a good time. On light days, 12 hours is a good time. Because this is medical grade silicone, it is not going to cause any problems inside. And I have been repeatedly saying that the menstrual fluid is sterile. So there is no chance of toxic shock syndrome or any other infection at all.
Sure.
Can we use it even when the blood flow is high? Yes, you can definitely use it even when the blood flow is high. You can use the cup. Only thing is, after 2 to 3 months of trial, you will come to know that on high blood flow days, it takes 6 hours for the cup to be full, or it takes 8 hours. And accordingly, you can adjust and you can empty the cup accordingly. If you are somebody who's having a very heavy flow, you might not be able to keep the cup without emptying it for 8 hours. You might have to bring it down to 6 hours. So that is absolutely fine. Again, always keep a backup. You can also, a lot of women who are heavy bleeders, they also wear the cup and they put a biodegradable panty liner. So if they are stuck in a situation where the cup is full within 4 to 5 hours and it is still some time before they can get out of the commitment they are in currently and go and change it, the panty liner does the work. So that is another trick there. I couldn't go converse with the corona, pap smear, Surya 5 months back. Vagina get white discharge. Be great. Again, a gynec question. Okay. In these corona times, the same method should be used to sterilize the cup. Yes. So this is the fun part where me and my younger sister, I was being a doctor myself, was not aware that the availability of these sustainable menstruation products is the biggest problem here. We went to all big pharmacies. We were hunting pharmacies for 3 hours and not a single pharmacy had either a menstrual cup or a cloth pad or a biodegradable pad. All they had were commercial pads. So right now, the only option I had in this lockdown was to online order one, where people are really worrying about stocking up sanitary napkins, where sanitary napkins are getting out of stock. Ever since I have invested in the cup, I am quite at ease because I know that I really don't have to worry about that option. And the sterilization part, yes, you can sterilize it the same way. Here, because we don't have compost bins or composting in our houses, I just drain the menstrual fluid into the commode, flush it out, wash it with spout, the whatever extra water is there, again throw it in the commode, wipe it dry with a cloth which is dedicated for cleaning the menstrual cup, and I reuse it again. So that's, you can sterilize it the same way. And also anything in, some people have also been using geyser water, so they there are a few beliefs and a few cultural restrictions that come. So people don't want you to boiling water in the same vessel you might use for quick cooking to, you know, for the water for menstrual cup. They'll be like, kya kar rahe ho ye, why are you doing this, you know, have a separate vessel or do it somewhere else. So another thing you can do is you can boil the water in a basic vessel and you can put it in another container that you have dedicated for the cup only. And you just need to put the cup inside the water. If you are somewhere where boiling water is not possible, geyser hot water is also a good option. When you are back where you have access to boiling water, you can sterilize it in boiling water again. Please share a few names where you can buy the cup. There are many. So the range is from 300 rupees to 1200, 1300 rupees. I have been using the one from the women's company, which is in the range of 550 rupees. Also, Sirona is a very good company. If you're somebody who is trying out new Sirona cups, come for 350, 400 rupees. You can try different sizes. They are also a little more firm, the Sirona cups. So because they are more firm, it is easier to handle them. It is easier to insert them. It is easier to remove them. Most of the medical grade silicone cups which are there, they are a little pliable, a little flexible. So sometimes you might not be so comfortable when you are pushing in or pulling it out. So you can start with a more firmer cup. So like I said, there is Sirona, She Cup, Boond Chups, The Women's Company. There are many online platforms. Also, you can look for menstrual cups on Amazon or Flipkart or Snapdeal. They are available on all shopping platforms, but online only. Any other questions I missed? No. No other questions. So basically, this was about the menstrual cup. So I don't have a cloth pad to show you right now, but then the washing and the drying of the cloth pad is pretty basic. You can also, there are many tutorials on YouTube where you can actually make your own cloth pads from all the old cotton cloth that is lying just at home. which is also a good way of experimenting and a good way of doing. If you have a sewing machine, or if you have somebody who knows how to stitch in your house, you can actually go ahead and you can start experimenting. So what you can do is you can take a regular sanitary napkin that you have been using. It could be an XL size or a large size. You can just cut out the shape, and you can have 5 to 6 layers of cloth one over another, and you can make a pad for yourself at home. So that can also be done in these times of corona, where you are not exactly able to get your hands on these menstrual hygiene products. Can we get cotton pads as biodegradable pads in local medical stores? No. Like I said, I have been hunting for them and they are not available. They look at you as if pata nahi aapne kya mang liya unse. Sterilization we did,
Online,
yes.
what about
Online? Yes, online there are a lot of
online?
platforms where you can order cups. But that one thing is that start with investing in a less range, so that you can experiment with sizes. And once you know that this size suits you best, you can stick to that one cup which is there. I think I have covered everything. So in 2011 in Canada, they did a research where they had given half of the women menstrual cups and half of the women sanitary napkins. And then when they did a randomized control trial, they just chose women at random. And they went back, 91% of women using menstrual cups said that they would use it again. Whereas in the sanitary napkin users, they had a lot of problems like too much wet feeling, too many incidences of rashes, chaffing of thighs when they are, because of the wings that are there. So these kind of problems, and around 61% said that they would not want to use a sanitary napkin again. Is there any other option that can be used? So this was done in 2011, around 9 years ago, which showed that 91% of the women were very happy with it. It just needs time and a little patience. Also, another thing about the cloth pads, again, you have to wash the blood off. It's the same icky feeling and the same mental block. So it is advisable that you maybe get over it or maybe accustom yourself to it. It's just 5 days a month. And you will be comfortable to go with that also. Any other questions for me? We still have some time.
I guess.
Anything else anybody wants to ask? So yes, that was about it. A lot of questions I got, a lot of input that I got. Mental block was a good one. Yes, the anxiety and fear of the pain. Yes, we've clarified that. So now I hope that I have, whoever we have spoken to now, I hope that at least 50% of you will go
But if
back.
Priya is written is the same man who died.
Cheryl, are you asking a question? Shirley, are you asking a question? No. So I hope at least 50% of you would go back and consider this. And also, when considering this, also try and think about how are you going to dispose of. Now, is it possible that movie called Padman actually portrayed that cloth pads when, oh yes, I had to thank, that's a very good question. I had actually thought about it. In the current movies that have been like Akshay Kumar's Padman, or even other scenarios where they have said that so many women in India are menstruating in an unhealthy way, they are using cloth pads and they are using cloth as an absorbent material, which is not safe at all. You have to consider all the factors in it. They have poor sanitation habits. They don't have dedicated toilets in every house. Women are treated differently when they are menstruating. They have been asked, they have been told to go and sit in one corner in a mud hut or somewhere where they are provided food and they are provided, their bathrooms are different and everything else. So how good are the sanitation conditions if somebody is using a cloth or a cloth pad? They don't have availability to usable clean water. Clean water is a big problem in rural India. So even if they are using cloth and cloth pads, how do they wash it? So you need to address these factors before you label cloth pads and cloth as not good absorbent materials. In some tribal areas or forest areas, people are actually using dried leaves, dried leaf pulp. They are using dried twigs where they can fashion into a pad kind of a thing and use. So those kind of things are still harmful because you don't have any way of sanitizing them. But if you can wash the cloth and you can wash the cloth pad, it is safe. So then these movies that portray that cloth pads are not good, they have to make it clear to the viewers that why are they not good? What are the limiting factors? Because the limiting factors are totally different. The limiting factors are not because of the cloth, are not because of the cloth pad. It is because of the sanitation facilities, clean water, good amount of exposure, which is lacking, why it makes them unsafe. So that was a good question, Blue Sky. Thank you very much. Yes, so that is all.
Great.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions for me?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ankita.
Yeah,
You were so good, and this was so informative, and it was very, very helpful. And thanks for answering that question about the movie as well.
Yes.
But
another
yeah,
thing that I would just like to say is virginity and your menstrual cup. So if you are, we all come in contact with many women. If you come in contact with any young, inquisitive girl who wants to try menstrual cup, who doesn't want to, so girls who are already using tampons can totally use menstrual cups. There is no problem at all because the hymen is already broken. Now, virginity and hymen are linked together. They are actually two very different things. Your virginity has nothing to do with your hymen. Virginity is basically penetrative sexual intercourse. Hymen can break when you're doing gymnast, when you're running, when you're swimming. Even if you have a very bad sneeze, your hymen can break. So hymen is nothing but just a membrane which is there, and it is not a complete membrane. It is basically a donut shaped membrane. So even if someone whose hymen is intact can use the menstrual cup if they use the pinch down fold, where the if you use the pinch down fold where it becomes really small, and in that donut shaped hymen you can just enter it from wherever the hymen is open, and once it goes inside it will open up. It is not going to tear your hymen in any way. It might stretch it, yes, but not tear it. So menstrual cups can be used by women who have intact hymen. First thing, young kids who are already using tampons can totally use menstrual cups, not a problem. If you still have a lot of question, you're not aware of the anatomy, you're not aware of how and what it looks down there, you can always take professional guidance with the help of an adult, with the help of your mom, your sister, your aunt. You can visit to a doctor. The doctor can explain, and your caretaker who's come with you can also help you with these things once you are back home.
Yeah, hello. I wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
Okay, actually, my daughter is in her teens, nearly 16, and the first few days, that is, first and second days, are pathetic for her because she has very severe cramps. Basically, I must have missed out your earlier meeting. So I just joined late. So I just wanted to understand because she is in such a pain, and then she can just have Meftos spas, and then only she feels better. Then either she pukes, then she feels better. Otherwise, first day is very pathetic for her, and she is in her teens and she's in standard 11. So it is very difficult for her to manage with the the first day is very difficult. What is the alternative? What's precaution she can take?
Okay. Whenever there are young girls who are menstruating, so if she would have started getting her menses, I think she's 16 years old, right? So she must have started getting her menses when she was 14 years old or 13 and a half.
Probably earlier, actually.
Okay. Now, dysmenorrhea is something which starts when you start getting your periods, and dysmenorrhea is something which is very commonly seen in young girls because their ovaries have more number of follicles. They are because of such young eggs, because of the good hormonal axis, the amount of endometrium thickness is also more. So, because during periods, because the endometrium thickness is more and the amount of the blood that needs to be pushed out of the uterus is more, the uterus cramps. Dysmenorrhea for day one, which is incapacitating enough for the girl to just lie down the whole day, not carry on with the routine activities of the day. If it is taken care of by a painkiller, it is advisable for her to take a painkiller. Many girls, I do advise them that once you start getting your periods, you know that, okay, the period has started now, I might start developing pain. You have one painkiller then and there. There is this myth around painkillers that it is going to reduce the contractile power of your uterus, and full menstrual blood or complete menstrual blood will not be thrown out of your body, and which will lead to problems later. It doesn't happen that way.
Mhm.
The painkillers that we
Achha.
give are basically smooth muscle relaxants. So they will decrease the pain. They will not make the pain go away completely. They will decrease the pain, but the uterus will function to its fullest capacity. It will contract to its fullest capacity. The pain perceived will be less. So whenever first day is so difficult or day 2 is so difficult, it is advisable that they take painkillers, and hot water bags or heating pads are very good. If she's already taken a painkiller, she's at home and she knows that it is about to start, give her a hot water bag or a heating pad.
Yeah, that she does.
So
That she
that also
takes.
helps a lot. Other than that, nothing else. There is definitely a condition known as endometriosis where girls have very, very, very severe pain, but it can easily be found out when they are doing when we are doing an ultrasound. So if the pain is too bad and if even the painkiller is not taking care of it, then it is advised that further more evaluation is required in forms of ultrasound to see if there are actually endometriotic cysts which are causing this pain. Then that becomes a totally different thing. According to what you are telling me, it looks like dysmenorrhea. It looks like period pain. It is absolutely normal for this intensity of period pain to happen in young girls, but they need to be explained that you need to manage the pain with the help of painkillers and hot fomentation. Don't suffer because of the pain because it is not required.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so I think our session time is also up. Thank you so much for joining this session. Thank you so much for all your lovely inputs. And I hope that you all go back and you all also shift to sustainable menstruating hygiene products.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ankita. I think I'll try for sure.
Yes, you should definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you. Bye. Good
Bye.
night.
Take care.